You're listening to the official Reformed Stoic podcast, covering politics, philosophy, theology, conspiracy theories. I'm ready to get to the bottom of this life. Are you? Join Wolfgang, Sketty Squad, Purity Gang, as we strive to take dominion over this dying planet. I am Reformed Stoic, and this is my podcast. Oh, Lucy, you got some splaining to do. One of these days, Wilma. One of these days, right to the moon. Let's go! Oh, wait, you're never gonna go to the moon because it's not fucking there. Let's go! How we doing, guys? Woo, had a nice hard workout today. Never quite got to the practice pad. Maybe I'll skid it after the podcast a little bit. I think we got a unique show put together for you guys today. I'm going to be relying heavily on a couple of large sources. So hopefully these people are doing their jobs. Two big topics that we need to make sure we're all on the same page on. Terms that are very important around here. Very relevant to these times that we're living in, that many might refer to as the Great Reset. I need to make sure everybody knows at least a little bit about transhumanism and a little bit about technocracy. A little bit of an introduction. Transhumanism is using technology and science to improve as humans. Like, ultimately, it's in line with Darwinism. We supposedly come from this nihilist Big Bang. This is all an accident. This is all a mistake. There's no intelligent design. There's no creator. So we just happen to be the best. Why are people the smartest? Not for a good reason, that we were designed in God's image. Humans are the best because somewhere along the line in Darwinian evolution, there was a genetic mutation. There was a freak genetic mutation, and by accident, we became the intelligent, dominant species on Earth. So Christians believe that it's because we are designed in God's image, and none of it's by accident. People are the dominant species because we are, in fact, the dominant species. It's created that way. It's all by design. But for atheists, it's a freak accident. It's a genetic mutation. And seeing how it's all a freak accident and a genetic mutation, the technocrat, or rather the transhumanist, is taking something that is blind. Our development as people is blind. There's no oversight from a higher power. So why wouldn't the human mind that produced science and writing and technology, this is all things that have come from the human mind. The human mind is a superior intellect upon the earth. Therefore, why not improve this evolutionary process? Why not intervene in this process that's ultimately just dumb, random genetic mutations? There's no sort of special oversight. No God is helping us become anything important. So why not, as enlightened people, intervene with the process and make people better through technology? So that's kind of my cold take on it. And then technocracy, I'm going to just go ahead and see what we got today. We have Jay Dyer for 18 minutes. What is transhumanism? Is it dangerous? Jason Burmez and Jay Dyer. So he just put this out a few days ago. It's almost 20 minutes. We're going to have to be very patient today, but these are interesting topics. And then we have The Great Reset Part 1, Technocracy, from Bill Whittle. And that goes for 26 minutes. So we'll see how this goes. Maybe they talk slow and I can put it in fast forward or something. Bottom line, my friends, is that these are important topics and this podcast is about learning. So today I'm just going to straight up grift off of these people. Hopefully I'll be able to pause at some points. I'm sure Rick will have some insights along the way. And we're going to try to make it educational. And then we're just going to close up with the topic of how should Christians approach the end times. And then also, I do have the news tab pulled up. Let's pick one short news segment before we get kicking on these long videos. We'll pick one short news segment just to get a taste of what's going on in the world for the news segment. You're listening to the Reformed Stoic News segment. Let's go. Flipping monkey. Let's monkey it. Your soul will be trapped in the metaverse forever. Cyberpunk hype. Cyberpunk dystopia hype. Okay, let's get-y. So first up, let's just pick something from news. What looks scrumdiddlyumptious? Fox News baffled by low early voting. Tracking the winter storm. Bombing suspect appears in U.S. court. Ukraine intensifies attacks on Russian-occupied territories. Scientists produce nuclear fusion breakthrough. Oh, boy. Author says he noticed something bizarre about Russian people during recent trip. Okay. Let's go ahead and go with a little bit of the latest on Ukraine from ABC.
Ukraine is intensifying its attacks on Russian-occupied territory. Video circulating online shows a fire and damage after strikes on targets in Melitopol, which Ukrainians say was a Russian base. A Russian official says it was a civilian recreation center, confirming 2 people were killed. Foreign correspondent Tom Sufi-Burridge joins me live from Kyiv now for more on this. Tom, what's the latest on these attacks, and what do they mean, do you think, for where this conflict is right now?
Yeah, Diane, I think this shows that the Ukrainians still have the intent to take more territory. I mean, these type of missile strikes behind enemy lines that we've seen on a number of occasions over a period of months before the Ukrainians have launched offensives are basically to destroy, command and control the systems and the places which the Russians use to plan their war, and army bases as well. And I think it's significant that the Russians have at least admitted that people were killed in this attack. The video evidence we verified really shows a lot of carnage down at that site. The Ukrainians saying they've killed scores of soldiers in that attack. And I think the bigger picture here is that the war here is very much still alive. There's intense fighting around a city called Bakhmut. The Russians seem obsessed to try and take that city in the east. We're getting unverified information that the Ukrainians are suffering quite significant casualties in that fight, but they're holding their territory, broadly speaking. This war is not going away. We're seeing heavy shelling of the city of Kherson in the south, recently liberated by the Ukrainians. And the Russians are pressing on. Yes, the winter's set in. It's harder for either side to make significant gains, but the war is very, very much still hot at the moment.
So President Biden spoke with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky yesterday. What are we learning about that call, Tom?
Well, I think the most significant thing, Diane, from the readout from the White House was that the US is emphasizing its support now for Ukraine with respects to improving air defenses. We've seen the US supply NASAMS, a very high technology advanced system, into Ukraine. At least 2 of those systems are in country now. More are promised. But the Ukrainians are saying they need more. The White House is emphasizing that this is a priority. We've seen the Russians constantly bombard and fire missiles and drones at Ukrainian infrastructure, at power stations. Over the weekend, they struck the city of Odessa, the biggest port city in the south, hitting power stations, again, cutting the power to hundreds of thousands of people in that city. There's a real sense of misery here, I think. There's determination in the face of that, but the Ukrainians are living, a lot of them, without power, without water at times, and without connectivity. It is a dire situation. Diane?
All right, Tom Sufi-Burge, thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks.
So Ukraine, Russia, still happening. Ukraine intensifying attacks on Russian-occupied territories, back and forth, yada, yada. Civilian recreation center before they turn it into a military base. Glory and respect to Ukraine. I remember when the caravan of tanks lined up, ready to march into Ukraine and take their land. Like it would ever be that easy. Slava Ukraine. All right. The war rages on. Okay, guys. Movie time. Everybody get comfy. Get your popcorn. Get your snackies. 18 and a half minutes of Jay Dyer, baby. Let's go. I don't really care about crypto, dude. Some crypto criminal got locked up. Sucks for him. Let's learn about transhumanism from Chad Dyer.
All right, welcome everybody. This is Jay's analysis tonight. Longtime favorite, longtime guest. He's back. It's been a few months. Always love it when Burmis comes on. He's a legend in the truth community. You've seen many of his documentaries. You've seen his work over the years. Now he's with Red Voice Media. Jason, what's up, man? I want to talk about transhumanism with you. You're one of the best people to go to on this because every time I look at stories, I see you. You've covered it right away. You're like on the cutting edge of everything transhumanism. So like, are you going to be the next, are you going to be the transhumanist? Are you going to be the God creature that emerges from the machine, the Deus Ex Machina?
Man, it's just so weird because let's take it back, okay, to just me being a kid and the idea, right, of robots and extended life and even VR, say late 80s, early 90s, was really popularized. And as a kid, it all seemed like just a great idea, right? It's like, man, I'm going to have superpowers, or I'm going to be able to go into these VR universes. But at the same time, that was at a point in my life where I kind of had an idealized view of the world. You know, I believed in my government. I believed in my country. I thought that the people that were running the show were benevolent. I believed in a meritocracy where if you worked hard, you could have whatever you wanted. You could ascend to all these levels. And I didn't quite understand what was actually happening. And to fast forward to, say, post 9/11, where I've kind of awoken to the fact that the people that are in charge maybe aren't so benevolent, that look to a means to an end, and by all of their high-level...
Basically, he's like a gatekeeper. He definitely gives good information about these topics: geopolitics, transhumanism, the elite, the Anglo-American establishment. He's the best source. He's one of the best popular sources you can find on YouTube for that. As far as how he shills, like, I'm not really all about like orthodoxy. I can respect you if you're orthodox, you know, but he's kind of an orthodox shill. And ultimately, yeah, he has a history of palling around with Alex Jones, palling around with Nick Fuentes. He's palled around with some of the people of interest. So, yeah, I wouldn't go like telling Jay Dyer your life story and like being Jay Dyer's best friend. Honestly, guys, that's my take on it, but he's a good source for this topic.
writings by their gurus and the people that they've actually put in positions of power, like Ray Kurzweil, you're talking about not only a possible post-human future, but what's left of humanity, if there is anything, will be enslaved along the way in an unimaginable fashion to what we experience on a daily basis. So it's kind of become my issue, because I think that being human is a lot more important to me than I ever thought it would be when I was in my teens or even in my 20s, right? You know, like thinking about this future. And it makes you reflect also on the possibility of what I think transhumanism is two things. Okay, so one, you have the peasant class, us, the vast majority. We're talking about, forget about the 1%. What we're talking about for, you know, ostensibly is the 0.0001% that are going to use transhumanism to try to biologically stay alive. Okay, that they're fountain of youth through technology, but essentially
one of the first things that comes to mind for me is like, and I'm not trying to be an asshole, like fat white trash, like roller scooter moms in like a Texas Walmart on welfare. And what do they got? They got Oculus Rift. They got the iPad 20. They got the iPhone 15. They got like all this fancy smart tech. Like the first thing that pops into my mind when we're introducing transhumanism is big, fat, roller scooter rolling white trash Texas moms on welfare, and they got like cutting edge smart tech. I'm sorry if that sounds disrespectful. Everybody and their fucking grandma has a smartphone. That's a good place to start.
In the same shell or husk, but enhanced. For us, the Ubermensch, if you will. For us, it's merging with the machines as we're completely and totally enslaved and essentially euthanized, experimented upon along the way, but also euthanized into this idea that we'll be able to upload our consciousness, okay, and into this virtual era. So it's a complex issue, but it's one that is rapidly taking place. You blinked and the Internet of Things was everywhere and in live time and accessible to you or I through various websites in the forms of apps now that, I don't know if you've seen this one, Jay, I covered a few months ago, where you can take a video or a picture on Instagram, okay? And there's an app, when you take that picture, it will scan all the CCTV data in the GPS location that you have and then show you the video of you taking that photo.
Wow.
And that's just one example of the Internet of Things. That's already encompassed us. We're in the Track Trace Database Society,
right,
talking about in 2008 when I first started subbing in for Alex Jones and working at InfoWars. They want to take it to the Internet of Bodies.
Yeah.
And in order to do so, they want to take essentially the institutions that have now been put into place post-COVID 1984 that are still there, contact tracing, QR codes, etc., and incorporate that into our very biology through biomedical fascism.
Yeah, so Klaus, everybody, I'm sure we're all friends of Klaus. We all love Klaus. Klaus, who has recently said, we'll be inside your body, we will change the DNA. That's a whole chapter, if everybody hasn't seen it, called Reforming the Physical World, by which he means Internet of Things and changing everything, including the synthetic life forms will become synthetic life forms. The transformation to synthetic silicon-based life forms. He proposes GMO foods. Everything will be edited to be a new type of thing, something other than what it is now, because as he says, man is the problem, biology is the problem. And so, as I was looking at Klaus's stuff again, I wanted to ask you, I mean, has this come quicker than you thought, or did you think it's like right around what you expected? Do you think that they're on time? Are they speeding it up, or are they behind schedule?
Well, unfortunately, man. So let's take it back to 2014, 2015. I thought they were on pretty good scheduling for global governance, right? I really saw the move to empower the United Nations, to move to this idea of collectivism, and essentially start to stamp out any dissident voices, right? That was starting to happen. And then you kind of had this populist revolt with Trump. Okay, love him or hate him. Essentially, one of the reasons that he was able to game the system is he was saying more truth than anybody had in that position of power. I would argue somebody like Rand Paul was doing better in the debates and laying it down in a more truthful manner, but Rand Paul's not a billionaire. Rand Paul wasn't at the zeitgeist of popular culture and able to talk at other candidates like, I donated to all of you people. It was things like that that really got people into a movement where they said, this globalism is real. We need to push back against it. We do need more values within the country. We do need a better economy. Let's get this disruptor in. And I truly believe that they did not want Trump in. It's kind of like Confessions of an Economic Hitman with John Perkins. None of infrastructural tools have been disbanded or regulated or audited in any meaningful way. And instead, they've been encouraged and given an autonomy and really almost zero accountability. So somehow Trump games that system. And ostensibly, again, I think the country was doing better. Far from perfect, Jay, but I had more money in my paycheck. Okay, even as they were trying to divide everybody, there were really no new wars started. I didn't like the Saudi Arabian thing. I didn't like how they were still going after Assange. But at the same time, things weren't so bad. And I thought to myself, these people are patient. They'll allow things to get pushed back. And then the pandemic hits, right? And it's like right on time. But to go back to your question of whether this has all happened so quickly, yeah, that's what woke me up to like, this is a locomotive train. And they want to put this stuff under your skin by 2030, within the next decade. Whereas I would have thought before they would have taken the baby steps, tried to institute more global governance, et cetera.
Right.
And, waited on the transhumanist aspects of this. But no, now I see it for what it is. They want you in the metaverse. That's almost synonymous with me with this multiverse as well. I saw you put a video out today about this multiverse psyop. And what those two things have in common to me, Jay, is both are trying to literally separate you from your humanity, from your biology, and from your identity, and take away your free will. One is offering you this idea that you can be in a metaverse of all possibilities, right? Just like the multiverse.
That's the multiverse's selling point, I think, is they're pushing it in all the movies to get you to think, oh yeah, that's what it'll be like in the metaverse, dude. I'll get the dragons. It's gonna be awesome, right? Literally, that's what it's being sold as in these Marvel movies, and that's what people are thinking. And I think that's the selling point. And I wanted to bring that up to you because towards the end of the book, Klaus has a whole chapter on VR. He describes it like, it's going to be like the Donny Mnemonic. It's going to be like the Vanilla Sky. If you remember those movies, people are in various ways, stuck in computer programs that mimic and replace their real life. Here we are. It's here, right? Klaus has a whole chapter on it. And by the way, it's going to be integrated with gaming, right? If you remember the Ready Player One, that movie, that was literally like preparing everybody for the metaverse.
And one of the things that also really woke me up to they were right on schedule and it really didn't matter, the small things, I guess, that Trump did, was taking a look back at this document.
Yes. I'm glad you keep calling attention to that, because I did a video on that. I think when you first called attention to it, I went and found that document, and that thing is crazy, dude. The shit in that is crazy.
Well, here's the part.
What is that? NASA, Future Strategic Issues slash Future Warfare, circa 2025. Interesting. I'll have to check that one out.
That really woke.
Yeah, it's sped up. I know Jay Dyer just about talks too fast. You guys think I should play at normal speed? I can understand it. When Jay Dyer does the impression of Klaus Schwab, that's kind of hard to understand when it's sped up, but he's right on the line. Jay talks fast, dude. He's one of those fast-talking smart people.
Look me up. It's talking about 2025 AD. It's talking about the bots, Borgs, and humans, right? It tells you none of this stuff is pixie dust. It's a straight up warfare document with people like DARPA, the
right.
NSO, the CIA, the who's who, right? And then you look at it with
let's take a look at that list. DARPA, SBCC-COM, DIA, that's Defense Intelligence Agency, AFSOC, EBAU, CIA, STIC. Wow, I don't even know a lot of these. The SEALs. Wow, that's a lot of letter agencies.
People like DARPA, the NSO, the CIA, the who's who, right? And then you look at it, and it tells you the ages of humankind. After they tell you that they're going to just genomically design and repair the human species, they talk about mind children. The premise of this, again, is humans are bad. They're destroying everything, global warming, crashing of the ecosystem. Right here, they're talking about cross-species and molecular breeding. But as far as to be on time, they predict in 2001 we'll hit the bio-nano era of humankind in 2020. Yeah. And then you see this virtual era. And even here in this document, they talk about holodecks, 5 cents reality. I was able to find many lectures with Bushnell. And we talk about the World Economic Forum and Klaus. One of the things I played yet again this week on my show is a World Economic Forum piece on the haptic feedback devices to bring you into that holodeck experience. So you talked about Ready Player One, and many people think, well, we have controllers now, there will be gloves later, all that, maybe. But those will be crude tools. They have already commercialized devices that are sending haptic magnetic wave feedback where you're just in that scenario and it feels as though you're there and you're controlling things as though you're there. Bushnell has openly talked about 5 cents VR. That's touch, taste, sight, and smell. And I want people to grasp that. That means they're tapping in to your very sensory system and mimicking that in real time already. So these are realities that are no longer in the realm of science fiction and are now being rolled out to the public, Jay.
Yes, and in perfect unison with what you talked about with that NASA document, nobody should ever forget, because a lot of these have come out in the last couple of years.
Man, people are so going to be banging robots soon. It is so going to happen, guys. Yeah, that's the comment I got for there. We will be banging robots this time 5 years from now. Maybe 10 years tops. Hopefully I won't, but they're going to make it good. It's going to be good. Robot banging. Let's go.
Odd timing that right after and during COVID, the coup, you get this declassification of these various documents. There was the Ministry of Defense document from the UK, which dealt with transhumanism. And then NATO put out their cognitive warfare document. And the reason I bring that one out is because that was part of the warfare strategy that the Canadian government used to psyop the public into getting the vaccines and being scared. And when you read the NATO psyop document about how to conduct brain warfare, it says that the end goal of the brain warfare is to insert into the human being nanotech and biotech.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because this document is also an outline for psychological warfare on massive. Right. It comes up literally 8 times. They talk about it right here in the large. They actually discuss shock and awe in this document pre-Iraq war. This is a pre-9/11.
Oh, that's old. Okay, wow.
I mean, this is 2001, July of 2001, pre-9/11. They also talk about CNN syndrome here, but they talk about it being inexpensive for information, internet, and psychological warfare. And on the bottom, they say it's inexpensive to use Trojan horse civilian systems. Well, those Trojan horse civilian systems in large are what you could refer to as the big tech platforms of today that are basically censoring on behalf of this great narrative that now Klaus Schwab has openly written about. So, you know, it's kind of fun.
Gang stalking falls under that document, by the way. Psychological warfare methods, no-touch harassment. Yeah, NASA, NATO, intelligence agencies, the usual suspects. Yeah, definitely gang stalking falls within that.
Funny how it works, right? You have the mouthpieces out there that are putting out the policy via Klaus Schwab, the World Economic Forum. And then you have them being solidified by puppet governments like the United States.
Yeah.
And then the United States is using the guise of corporate entities to enforce those very narratives and policies via big tech. You know, Google is another great example of this. You know, you talked about the multiverse, the metaverse, and Google partnered with NASA. This is a NASA document many years ago in quantum computing. Well, when you talk about AI and quantum computing and the future of VR, that's all intertwined with one another. And they said they achieved quantum supremacy back in 2019. This is really an extension of the military industrial complex. Document talks about nanosats quite a bit. Let's see if we can bring that up. And now, there they are right there, also in the large. That is what Starlink is. And the classified version of that is Blackjack. And they work together as well. And these nano satellites, when you look at them, you know, they're built of different materials. They are obviously automated robot, but they're going to be creating a synthetic skin of nanosensors around the planet. Right here, micro nanosats, GNC sensors, where you'll also not only have real-time track trace database from the Magic device and the CCTV camera, but variably by interacting with anything via this network of nanosensors.
Yes, that's great, because I didn't actually realize that was that old of a document. I thought it was a more recent thing, but that's way ahead of time. So notice the content.
And what this really amounts to is it's gang stalking. I'm not going out of the way to bring it up because it's relevant to me. Like, what this all amounts to, which I feel like Jay conveniently leaves out. See, this is where Jay is a shill. I call up Jay Dyer and say, hey, man, the stuff that I learned from you, it's got me targeted by the CIA, and I have evidence of it. And it's like, well, nobody cares. Nobody's like, what do you mean nobody cares? I learned almost everything I know about geopolitics from you, Jay. You're the one who talks about how corrupt all these agencies are. You're the one who's on your channel teaching everybody about all of this CIA NATO tech. And I'm like, hey, Jay, guess what? Remember that stuff you're teaching everybody about? It's happening to me, bro. The CIA's harassing me, bro, and I have evidence. Oh, well, nobody cares. Oh, so you're not really about this. So you're not really, like, trying to help anybody. You just want to go up here and be like, I'm so smart. I'm so smart. Well, you are smart, Jay, and, like, I learned a lot from you, and now I'm being harassed because some of the stuff I learned from you. Wow, I'm being this shit that you're showing people, NASA, CIA, they're using it on me, Jay. What do you mean you don't care? You don't care? So you just like to talk about all this shit? You're not really about it? You don't really support people who are, like, trying to speak up about it and trying to be active about it? But yeah, what everything that he's saying right now amounts to is that if you step out of line in this society, this is how they attack you. And they're fucking doing it to me. So yeah, this is what this all amounts to. Surveillance. Global surveillance. Technocratic surveillance state. It started ever since 9/11.
Continuity from the document that Jason is talking about to the 2020-2021 NATO cognitive warfare document. It reads real quick. I'll just want to read a couple quotes here. All of this starts with hyperconnectivity. Everyone now has a cell phone. It starts with information because information is the fuel of cognitive warfare. That's what this document's about. Information warfare is not a standalone operation. It is now a hybrid warfare, this document says. And then it goes on to say that these technologies will incorporate neurobiological fields, namely nanotech, biotech, infotech, and cognitive science, to make a cocktail that can further manipulate the brain. It goes on to say, here's the key point. Cognitive warfare is not fighting just against what we think. It is rather a fight about the way we think, and rather, can we change the way people think? It's much more powerful and goes far beyond warfare and psyops. This is actually about changing our actual brain. So they're not just saying, I want to change the way you think. It's saying what Klaus says, we'll change you. We're going to change the brain itself. That's the point of the nanotech that Jason's talking about.
Yeah, unfortunately, Jay, again, most people, even when they think of human brain interfaces, which are brain chips, right? Now it's largely accepted that we're beyond the realm of science fiction, and this will be the next step. Elon Musk publicly talking about this and trying to put out his Neuralink product. But Again, if you go into their own documentation and the RAND 2040 military document via these human brain interfaces, you find out that, yeah, it starts with mRNA, nanotech, with the COVID-19 84 shots, et cetera, and it ends with injections that are also non-invasive human brain interfaces where they can literally regulate your serotonin and endorphin levels, and then even remotely control you via a third party or AI system in a remote area. This
And everybody get ready. By the way, we got through this really quick. It's almost over. Buckle up and watch everybody that you grew up probably being pissed off by if you're based. Watch them all get the fucking nanotech. They already did it with the vaccines. Most everybody here knew the vaccines were bullshit. You watched all your friends and family get the vaccines. Watch them all line up and get the Neuralink. Watch them all line up and get the fucking serotonin bot injections. Oh, I just got that dang old Neuralink, bucko. Yeah, can you help me hook up the VCR to my Neuralink, bucko? Like, everybody's going to get this shit, dude, and you're going to watch in awe. And the part of you that was like, why were people fucked up to me growing up? Why was I made fun of? Why did I suck with girls? Why did it just seem like I couldn't fucking win? Pay close attention to what's happening now. You're the one who sees through this shit. You're the one who's not falling for it. You're the one who's not jumping off of the fucking cliff with all the dumb lemmings. Yeah, all the cool popular kids, they're getting Neuralink. They're getting the vaccine. They ain't fucking shit. This life ain't about them. It's about you, brother. You figured it out and they didn't. And that's not really what being a Christian is about. So I apologize. It's a little bit ungodly what I said, but the part of you that like was pissed off by normies, look at them all fucking walking off of the cliff as lemmings. They're all gonna fucking self-destruct now, guys. You woke up. You saw through it. When you were praying to God, saying, God, please make my life less miserable, he answered your prayers. You're smart enough to see through it. Congratulations.
sounds like something, again, out of science fiction, but it is openly being war gamed within the RAND Corporation, which you and I have actually done a large podcast on describing the importance. So maybe you want to hit upon that and really elaborate on the fact that this goes, unfortunately, when we talk about this nanotech, eventually you may not have a choice because they're simply, and they talk about it in this document, we'll put binary biologicals into the food and water supply, and it can also be aerosolized.
Right, and so keep in mind the recent UK Ministry of Defense document on transhumanism. It says that there's going to be a lot of people that are not receptive to wanting to get chips or wanting to get these kind of implants. And so that document says what we'll have to do is engage in a lot of social engineering, psychological warfare to get people to take it. And so what Jason's describing is the layer beyond that. Well, if they're not going to take it, we'll just put it in the freaking food, right? And as you know, we've talked a lot about Rand, and I know you know about Annie Jacobson. I lectured through her DARPA book, and there's a whole chapter in her DARPA book called Future War. It's the whole section. And in Future War, she goes into the Pentagon's plans for cyborgs, androids, drones, etc. That's the origins of all this is, like Jason said, Rand Corporation research during the Cold War and MK Ultra. And Annie Jacobson has a whole section, a whole chapter on MK Ultra. And while there may be a lot of positives to brain chips in terms of troops that were hurt, I know somebody personally who had brain issues, and then they got a stabilizing chip put in that actually helps them to stop having tremors. And that's great, but the point here is that this is not ultimately about helping people, right? This is ultimately about literal enslavement and control, like a science fiction story. And like Jason said, like you can go back to these old war games where they were, it's literally just talking about Skynet here, right? You're talking about Skynet here, and it comes out of these old programs where they wanted to experiment with super soldiers, MK Ultra, evolving man by design by the priest class to create the superhuman, ultimately with the idea that they're going to have immortality or whatever.
Okay, we got through that. Freemasonry takes you up to 1945. The technocrats such as the Galtons, Darwins, Wedgwoods, Huxleys, that's the meat of the issue. After 1945, the RIIA and the CFR. CFR is Council on Foreign Relations. The RIIA. Is the RIIA, what is that? Royal International... Can we RIIA it? Let's RIIA today. Or are those L's? Recording Industry Association of America? That's not it. Royal Institute of International Affairs. Yeah, that's the one that keeps slipping my mind. The Royal Institute of International Affairs. I feel like that one's the most obscure because I hear people talk about Council on Foreign Relations and Trilateral Commission a lot. Bilderberg a lot. Don't forget about the Royal Institute of International Affairs. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dyer. One playthrough of Deus Ex Human Revolution was enough to ensure I would never want to live in that timeline. Man, that's a game I consider playing. Deus Ex. That's supposed to be super woke. And then Ready Player One, I might consider watching that soon. Yeah, like Henry Kissinger is basically the face of American international action for decades, and he was Council on Foreign Relations. So there's definitely some public stuff if you look hard enough for Council of Foreign Relations. Trilateral Commission, Bilderberg, Royal Institute of International Affairs. All right. Well, we got through that one. Now we got an even longer one. And I'm not sure about this source here. We're kind of going to give this guy a shot. Bill Whittle, The Great Reset, Part 1, Technocracy. So, transhumanism is one of the end goals of the technocracy. The technocracy are the ones pushing us to transhumanism. That's what I'll say to kick us off for this one. Let's go.
The Great Reset. You know, most of us have heard the term, and while most of us don't know exactly what the term means, we do know that, as a general rule, we don't like the people that keep talking about it. Now, at 7:48 a.m. on April 5th, 2022, the total U.S. national debt was, at that instant, $30,364,452,415,818. That means any child born to U.S. citizens at 7:48 a.m. on April 5th, 2022, enters the world owing $91,242. And if you're old enough or hardworking enough to be a taxpayer, then you owe, or owed, I should say, because the number keeps going up, it's higher now, $242,500 in order to zero the balance that has been run up on the credit card with your name on it to buy things that you don't own. And since the median income as of 7:48 a.m. on April 5th, 2022 was $35,786, that means that Mr. John Median Doe will have to take every dollar he earns, all of his rent, food, medical care, entertainment, transportation dollars, and all the rest, and pay every dollar he makes for 6.7 years just to square his own account, by which time, of course, he'll owe a lot more money. Now, regular people like you and I did not get us into this mess, or any of the other messes for that matter. Now, that was done by a small...
This has real Q energy so far. This has got real Q vibes. It's like he's going to give us like a real introduction to the problem. I'm ready to sniff out some like Q boomer LARP. He starts by telling us like some of the real problem and then insert like a wrong solution. Let's see what we got here.
Number of very, very smart people. People much smarter than we are. You can just ask them. And these people are the same people talking about basic minimum living wages specifically and the Great Reset in general. To unpack all of this will take more than one video, so to start, let's not talk about who these people are, let's talk about what they are. Now, of course, everybody knows that the word technocracy is not a new invention limited to tech giants, and they've known it for a long time. And by everybody, of course, I mean me, and for a long time, I mean a couple of weeks. You may be surprised to learn, I was anyway, that the word technocracy was first used by one William Henry Smythe, an engineer from, now imagine my shock and surprise, California. Smythe was one of those really, really smart people. The stupid people are named Smith. And he used the term technocracy way back in 1919, well before the information age, back in the days where if you told somebody you just Googled them, you'd probably get punched in the face and arrested for indecent exposure. Smythe described technocracy as, quote, the rule of the people made effective through the agency of their servants, the scientists and engineers, unquote. Now, the perceptive among you may notice that what Smythe was proposing was, quote, rule by scientists.
The rule of the people made effective through the agency of their servants, the scientists and engineers. Man, I really like that definition, you guys. Science says God isn't real. I guess God's not real. Science says the future's female. I guess the future's female. Science says we're destroying the earth. I guess we all need parking tickets if we don't use green gas-safe light bulbs, fluorescent light bulbs. The scientists, you guys. This is not that complex of something to grasp, but this is where normies really struggle, because your entire life you have laughed along with Comedy Central, like, wow, like Christians don't even think the dinosaurs existed, and wow, Christians think the earth is only 7,000 years old. Those nutty Christians, don't they know about science? Don't they know about science? That's what you grew up with. That's what you were born and raised with. That's what the school teaches you. That's what the television teaches you. That's what the music represents. Now, why would you reject that? Well, what I'm proposing to you is, I think you should think of this in terms of Descartes' demon that rules the world. Descartes is, in his search for the epistemological truth, he came up with the quote, I think, therefore I am. That's something that he knows. He knows he's thinking, therefore he knows that he exists. But in this search, he has considered that there could be an all-powerful demon that is deceiving us. Now, that's very similar to Gnosticism. But what I'm saying is that we are being deceived by a demon that is not all-powerful, but it has a lot of power. And that demon is the state. That demon is the system, the technocratic elite, the secret societies, the intelligent agencies. They are Descartes' demon. And we have been deceived. You are being led to believe that the Bible is some sort of an uneducated lie. But in reality, you are being lied to by the scientists and engineers who are the servants of the technocracy. Anyway, let's keep going.
And engineers, and that by happy coincidence, William Henry Smythe happened to be a scientist and engineer. The basic idea of technocracy came down to this. It would mean a world where the Smythes and presumably the Whitels would rule over the knuckle-dragging Smiths and the Whittles, as servants, of course, as rulers always are, servants. You know, the kind of servants that own and control things that their masters do not own and control, that kind of servant. Smythe believed that a technocracy would be a utopian society perfectly ordered by the very, very smart people and would therefore lack all of the confusion and waste and disorder generated by a constitutional republic. I mean, you can't just have everybody just kind of running around doing whatever they want to. That would be inefficient, you see. And resources as the...
Okay, here we go. And here comes the shilling. He's using this to all shill for democracy. They're pulling us away from democracy. No, democracy is liberalism. Democracy is part of it. So there's the shilling. And there's the shilling. They're pulling us away from our darn dang old... They're pulling us away from democracy, bucko. Nope, democracy is Hegelian dialectic. Democracy is part of their... See Aristotle's quotes on democracy. It's all part of their game. Democracy never works. It always leads to this. Fun fact. When people are looking at where the government's headed right now and saying, wow, we're watching democracy fail. No, we're living in the result of really capitalism. We're living in the result of capitalist democracy. This is really what happens. It didn't fail. We're right on schedule.
Very, very smart people have been telling us for over a century are about to run out any minute now. Now, one of the guys who was keen on this hip-swinging new technocracy idea was Donald Stabile. Encyclopedia.com lists his many pedigrees: statistician for Standard & Poor's, a member of the National Association of Accountants, assistant professor of economics at St. Mary College, then associate professor, then head of department, then associate provost, then director for the Center of Economic Education, and also co-organizer of the Cremora Conferences on International Economics. That is a very, very smart guy. Now, Don, you don't mind if I call you Don, do you? Don's first major work was published, appropriately enough, in 1984, and it was titled Prophets of Order, The Rise of the New Class, Technocracy, and Socialism in America. Now, who can spot the key word in that imaginatively repulsive title? Here's a hint. It's not order, and it's not technocracy. It's not even socialism. The word we're looking for is class. Many of us think that the chaos and disorder we're seeing out there is some kind of socialist revolution. I mean, it is, but that's only half right, and it's only half right twice. First of all, it's bigger than just socialism. The movement in question is called
the CIA, the American intelligence apparatus, the American Anglo-establishment intelligence apparatus has designed political parties that they're designed to avoid a socialist revolution. Our CIA hates socialism and communism, and everything about the modern left is designed through the Frankfurt School, who had OSS agents, to not be real communism, to not be socialism, to be no threat to capitalism.
Called materialism. And I don't mean consumerism, the desire to own nice things. I mean materialism as the idea that everything in the world, including and especially people, can be ordered, quantified, directed, and molded. That's how socialism works, of course, but strictly speaking, you don't have to be a socialist to be a materialist. It's just a way to bet. And what's going on out there right in front of our eyes is not a revolution either. It's a counter-revolution. You see, the actual revolution was a historical hiccup.
I have not been drinking. I have not enjoyed alcohol. It's just not been a positive thing for me for a long time. I feel like there could be a time in my life when I could laugh and have drinks with friends and maybe enjoy it again, but it's not been doing good for a long time for me.
Anomaly, which began back in 1776 and threw a monkey wrench into a system that had been humming along since humans came down from the trees, and if National Geographic is any guide, probably way before that as well. This idea of letting everyone be free to do whatever they wanted to created enormous wealth, health, prosperity, and happiness for pretty much everybody who participated, but that's not what counts. What counts, you see, is that some people don't like the idea of everyone being wealthy, healthy, prosperous, and happy, because up until 1776, they were the only ones who had been wealthy, healthy, prosperous, and happy, and they didn't much like the idea of the Smiths being admitted to the club whose membership used to be restricted only to the Smiths. So when you hear a very, very smart person talking about the wonders of the coming New World Order, what they're really talking about are the wonders of the coming Old World Order. And when you hear somebody speak about technocracy, just substitute the word.
Okay, so yeah, this guy's making a mess. 1776 was like some wonderful thing that ushered in a new era of prosperity, and oh my gosh, the world's so wonderful now because of 1776. Thank you, 1776. Thank you, Freemasons, for... Nah, this is very not really how it was. That's not really how it was. They're trying to bring us back to before 1776. This is all kinds of fucked up. You see, guys, if you don't have a firm grasp, if you don't have a firm, deep grasp on philosophy, history, philosophy of history, these kind of guys are just going to be able to just get away with this shit. Like 1776, in short, was not like, yes, we are ascending into equality. We've escaped the evil boot of the bourgeoisie. That's just really not. And I don't have like a big rant to clear up the mess that he's making of history right now, but that's just not how it is. Moving on.
Aristocracy, and then all of a sudden, everything will make perfect sense. Aristocracy, the rule of a handful of people over everybody else, because they're better than we are. Now, they used to explain this tyranny as something called the divine right of kings, but the word king is somewhat out of fashion at the moment, probably because...
Maybe somebody could check me on this. Off the top of my head, I feel like aristocracy is supposed to be better than an oligarchy. An oligarchy is a rule by money, and then an aristocracy is a rule by royalty, like royal families, a passing down through royalty. If we had like a legit Christian theocratic monarchy, and then we maintained an aristocracy through that theocracy, that would be better than an oligarchy. I believe what we have now is an oligarchy, ruled by money. Money is what rules. There's no inherited aristocracy through some sort of a royal bloodline. It's just money. Whoever's got the money makes the rules, and the same people have had the money for a very long time.
It's too on the nose. Perhaps we should call what they are saying and what we are seeing the divine right of nerds, geeks, and weenies, and that would be funny if it weren't so damnably, awfully true. So, what do these old world order techno-aristocrats really want, and how do they plan to get it? Well, let's start by looking at what they believe. Here are 3 examples, each in their own clinical, sterile, repulsive way. We'll start with a clip from a video produced by Google for their upper-level management. It's called The Selfish Ledger, and it lays it all out in the kind of calm, unemotional, desaturated, nihilistic, posh British accent that you might hear in an automated suicide booth.
When we use contemporary technology, a trail of information is created in the form of data. When analysed, it describes our actions, decisions, preferences, movement, and relationships. This codified version of who we are becomes ever more complex, developing, changing, and deforming based on our actions. In this regard, this ledger of our data may be considered a Lamarckian epigenome, a constantly evolving representation of who we are. What if the ledger could be given a volition or purpose?
I'll just throw in there really quick, guys. Probably like every YouTube documentary I've ever seen that tries to give you this all-encompassing understanding of history and, you know, trying to portray to you some sort of a truth about like technocracy or transhumanism. Most all of them will have this ingrained. 1776 was awesome. 1776 was a big step toward freedom. That was the beginning of democracy. Now they're trying to take away democracy. Very few sources will speak negatively of democracy. I believe Jay Dyer probably does. I highly doubt that Jay Dyer says anything that's pro-democracy, but yeah, it's just something you're going to have to develop yourself.
Rather than simply acting as an historical
being against democracy, which is definitely the truth, guys. Democracy is a part of the 2-party system of Freemasonic LARP. I don't know. I feel a little bit taken off guard that this guy's shilling for democracy. Everybody does. Everybody shills for democracy. You're just going to have to see it for yourself. It doesn't work.
What if we focused on creating a richer ledger by introducing more sources of information? What if we thought of ourselves not as the owners of this information, but as custodians, transient carriers, or caretakers? As an organization, Google would be responsible for offering suitable targets for a user's ledger. Whilst the notion of a global good is problematic, topics would likely focus on health or environmental impact to reflect Google's values as an organization. Once the user selects a volition for their ledger, every interaction may be compared to a series of parallel options. If one of these options allows the ledger to move closer to its goal, it will be offered up to the user. Over time, by selecting these options, the user's behavior may be modified and the ledger moves closer to its target.
Oh, that's charming, isn't it? Up next is someone who is so excited about what they plan to do that I don't think it ever occurs to her how deeply horrifying all of this really is.
What I wanted to epitomize with the Internet of Bodies is this notion that we will be under assessment, we will be under measure of computation in every aspect of our lives in the future. From what you eat, who you date, what you buy on the internet, how much energy you use, but also what are your vital signs? How well are you doing in terms of health? What kind of specific...
Ultimately, I think that politics tend to fail. But a healthy society, if the United States was healthy, you could very well see just like sweeping Republican dominance, I guess. In a more healthy society, you'd find one political party probably just dominating. This is not healthy. To have a country that is half Democrat, half Republican, and the country is completely torn down the middle, that's what they want. This is late-stage capitalism. And I would say that for maybe like the last 30, 40 years, entertainment has been engineering the left as the counterculture. Like the left is the counterculture, and it's not really dominating, but you have about a gridlock at this point. Half of the country is Republican, half of the country is Democrat. When I look at the culture of the 90s and the early 2000s, Comedy Central, movies, television, the left is being engineered, also by academia and the schools. The schools are trying to chug out leftists, and then if you're put off by that, then you go on 4chan, where you're taught to be far right. So a country that is half one thing, half another thing, that's not healthy. There's nothing healthy about 50% Republican, 50% Democrat. That's late stage capitalism nightmare. I think democracy could probably work better if you had a country that's just agreed. Countries are better when people agree with each other. This whole like, well, people deserve to have the choice. I mean, you should have the kind of government that just wants what's best for the people, and then that just acknowledges that there is a best. I mean, if there's a best, then why don't we just do what's best? Why do the people have to choose? But this is opening up a pretty deep rabbit hole here, guys. It's ugly. The idea that it's like, oh, it's so beautiful, man. Everybody voting. Half of the people hate the other half of the people, but you got your freedom of speech, and I support your right. I mean, I feel like there's some boomer who like drives around and looks at Antifa riots and Proud Boys riots and just takes a deep breath. Ah, isn't this beautiful? This is democracy, baby. I support your right for free speech, Antifa. I support your right for free speech, Proud Boys. I support it, baby. This is beautiful. This is democracy. It just brings a tear to my eye. Like, no, it's not beautiful. It's hideous. It's degradation. It's decadence. It's degeneracy. Late stage capitalism. Moving on.
Genetic quirks do you have?
And finally, here's as succinct a view on materialistic thinking as we are likely to get from a very, very smart person who is auditioning for the role of social engineer.
So I want to talk to you today about the future of our species, and really the future of life. We are probably one of the last generations of Homo sapiens. Within a century or two, Earth will be dominated by entities that are more different from us than we are different from Neanderthals or from chimpanzees. Now, how exactly will the future masters of the planet look like? This will be decided by the people who own the data, because we've reached the point when we can hack not just computers, we can hack human beings and other organisms. You need a lot of computing power, and you need a lot of data, especially biometric data. Not data about what I buy or where I go, but data about what is happening inside my body and inside my brain. Organisms, whether viruses or bananas or humans, they are really just biochemical algorithms. You know, the whole idea that humans have, you know, they have this soul or spirit and they have free will and nobody knows what's happening inside me. So whatever I choose, whether in the election or whether in the supermarket, this is my free will, that's over.
Now, the first time I saw...
Is that the gay Jewish guy? No cap. Like, I think that guy's gay, Jewish, and Israeli. Some people have speculated that he might be the Antichrist. I don't think anybody's the Antichrist. I'm not going to act like I know exactly how the Antichrist works. I don't know. I don't think anybody's the Antichrist just yet. Or maybe he is somewhere, but we don't know who he is. But I just said, is that the gay, Jewish, Israeli guy? Because some people said that maybe he's the Antichrist. Transhumanism will create a special class, special needs, just like kind of like that movie Gattaca.
All three of these clips, I thought there was something not inhuman, but I don't know, anti-human about them. It's such a reductionist, depressing view of the world. And then I realized why these people want us to cover our faces and above all maintain social distancing. They do it because these people abhor person-to-person contact, and not only because they can't control it. They hate the human connection because they don't have any human connections, not in the way that the rest of us do, which is why they want everything to be online, to be virtual. That very, very smart guy who we just listened to said that humans can be hacked, that free will is an illusion, that with enough data, they can not only predict our actions, they can actually control them. Well, that guy believes what he's saying because his world is limited by the frame. This is the frame. Online, as we are now, I control everything that's inside the frame. I control the lighting, I control the sound, and unlike in real life, if I make a mistake, I can just hit Control-Z and do it all over, which I've already done several times in this very video without you even being aware of it. Technocrats hate and fear things like football games and backyard barbecues because those things occur outside the frame. The frame of a computer terminal, for them, is not only their interpreter of the mysterious world of human belief and emotion. Those computers are also, and much more importantly, reducers of the complexity of life beyond the world of computer science and technology. And they especially don't like surprises. Unpredictability really pisses them off. Now, I recently had the pleasure of meeting a really brilliant man and his really brilliant wife. He was one of the architects of the information age, but despite that, they both have souls. They told me stories about their son, whose name is not Adam, fully grown now, and from early childhood, clearly an incredibly brilliant boy. His dad would give him a programming task, and he'd see the code in his head, and he'd write a new language if he needed to. He was that kind of brilliant. But all of those gifts came at a price for Adam, who, like many, if not virtually all of the technocrats, had a pretty severe case of Asperger's syndrome. Wikipedia describes it as, quote, a neurodevelopmental disorder characterized by significant difficulties in social interaction and nonverbal communication, along with restricted and repetitive patterns of behavior. And
okay, so he's trying to say that the technocrats have Asperger's. It seems like he's going off on this tangent about, oh, the technocrats, they don't have any friends, they don't have any social interaction, they're disgusted by freedom, and like this is all kind of like a nothing burger. Honestly, guys, the technocrats probably like live in fucking mansions and get blowjobs from 11 out of 10s like every second of every day. Like I don't know if I'm buying this whole I'm a lonely technocrat and I want people to be alone. No, dude, they got fucking lobsters and limos and money, and this is just for power, dude. This is for power. This is a terrifying, ferocious enemy. Like, that's why I like Dragon Ball Z, dude. Those kind of enemies in Dragon Ball Z, it's like, oh my gosh, he's level 10 billion and nobody could ever beat him except for Goku somehow. That's what we're facing, dude. Everything this guy's saying right now is kind of like a nothing burger. Oh, they have Asperger's. No, you have Asperger's. They got trillions of dollars. So this is a nothing burger.
Interests. So, how do technocrats really see this world that we live in? Well, when Adam was a child, his parents made him sandwiches and then cut them diagonally, as all real Americans do. But one day, some relative made him a sandwich and cut it straight in half. And when Adam saw that sandwich, he started to cry. He didn't know what to do. Sandwiches are cut diagonally. This thing is cut in half and therefore is not a sandwich. Cutting a sandwich in half caused Adam's brilliant brain to crash. Now here's the really fascinating part. His parents, who were not only very smart but also very loving, knew that there was only one way to solve this problem. Let's say that the not sandwich was made on a Friday. So Adam's parents told him that from now on, Friday was different day. Friday was the day where they did things differently, and that's why the sandwich was cut differently. Today was different day. And once Adam got that one additional line of code, everything was just great, and the sandwich was a sandwich again, just a different kind of a sandwich. And when this neurological condition caused Adam to be unintentionally very rude to his friend Jason, his parents told him that this was not appropriate behavior. Once Adam got the instruction not to be rude to Jason, he stopped being rude to Jason. He was still rude to all the rest of his friends because he had been told not to be rude to Jason. You know, I heard these stories and I said to myself, my God, that is exactly how computer language works. And that's why people like Adam, people with Asperger's, are so astonishingly good with computers. For example, a section of computer code could consist of 500 numbers separated by a colon, let's say. If number 433 is separated by a semicolon due to a simple typo, then that is not a sandwich, and the computer will crash, because computers...
This guy... Well, I don't know. I don't want to put words in this guy's mouth. He's talking about these Asperger's computer technocrat people. These people are definitely real, and they're definitely involved with the technocracy, but it's kind of coming back to that question of who really is on the tippy top, really calling the shots at the highest level. It's Rockefeller Chads, dude. It's Rockefeller Chads who are like mogging these transhumanist computer scientist nerds. Like, yeah, the Asperger computer scientist nerds have their seat somewhere, but they're getting mogged by Rockefeller Chad, who isn't a computer scientist and doesn't have Asperger's, and is like, hey, what's up, Beta? Like, you guys got that computer code yet? I gotta go eat shrimp, lobster cocktails, and like get blown by a supermodel. You got those computer code lines done yet, Beta? Okay, thanks, Beta. I think Rockefeller Chads are like at the tippy top, and they're not Asperger's betas, but that's just speculation.
And to a large extent, the people that are so good with them cannot extrapolate, which means that for them to be running smoothly, there cannot be any surprises. This is the face of someone with severe Asperger's syndrome who has no idea of in which direction the next sandwich is going to be cut. Turns out that real life is not so predictable even if you do own and control people's most personal data. So, how much more complex is real life outside the frame versus the virtual world inside the frame? Well, I used to be an editor for a movie talk show called Sunday Morning Shootout on AMC, hosted by Peter Bart and Peter Guber, both of whom, for reasons I cannot understand or explain, I liked very, very much. Peter Guber and his partner, John Peters, brokered the deal to sell Columbia Pictures to Sony back in 1989. Peter Guber told the story of how, during the negotiations to close the deal, he sat as a Hollywood producer in a Sony conference room, facing a long, long table of engineers and accountants and tech people, all of them in immaculate suits and ties. He was, in fact, at the very epicenter of the group of the really, really smart people that ran the top tech company in the world at the time. So Peter explained to these Sony executives how a movie studio works. We'll make 10 films a year, he said. That's what we call our slate. And out of that year's slate, 3 films will be big hits, 4 will more or less break even, and the final 3 will be flops. But we make more money on the hits than we lose on the flops, and that's how it works. And then the chairman of the board at Sony, a man who spent his entire life building radios and television, a very, very smart man, said to Guber, in all seriousness, why don't you just make the hits? What he couldn't understand, you see, was that a motion picture is infinitely more complex than a television set.
You see how this is kind of just trailed off into a nothing burger? Like, I told you, like, brace yourselves, some sort of Q shilling was coming. Like, it's going to start good, it's going to get you hooked, and then it's going to kind of like be a bait and switch to some sort of a shill. And there's sprinklings of shillings for democracy, and then really the shilling that they chose is just, he's just talking at us now. Like, he's not fucking saying anything. It's like, oh, they're wearing suits and ties, and my friend bought Sony, and they're gonna suits and ties and cut the sandwich, and he's fucking saying nothing now. This is just a big nothing burger. It's not like teaching you something problematic in the wrong direction. He's literally just like blabbing about fucking nothing. So that was the shilling they went with. I called it one more again. Something about this guy just screams like Q Boomer. And, yeah, this is a nothing burger. Let's give it another few minutes to get back on track.
Nobody makes flops on purpose. Everybody's trying to catch that lightning in the bottle. But the complexity of human emotions is so many orders of magnitude greater than that of a TV set that this incredibly successful engineer and brilliant man was absolutely baffled. Why not just make the hits? Gee, I guess I never thought of that.
Q Boomer.
Now, if it turned out that these very, very smart people were correct, in other words, that a very small handful of experts could produce a happier and better ordered society, then their attempt to control the lives of every one of us would still be as immoral, but at least there'd be some kind of justification for it. But they're not correct, and in order to prove it, I'm going to need an ox. This man is Francis Galton, shown here in his prime. Galton was a British scientist, a very, very smart man. He was a statistician, a sociologist, a psychologist, an anthropologist, a tropical explorer, a geographer, inventor, meteorologist, psychometrician.
Remember that one time, way like a couple of years ago, I made a video being like, dude, Francis Galton is based. I went over his like long list of how many titles he had. Yeah, Francis Galton, and he's not based. He's also an elitist. He's also bad news, but man, oh man, did he have a lot of titles.
A tropical explorer, a geographer, inventor, meteorologist, psychometrician, and eugenicist. Now, back in 1906, just a few years before he died, Francis Galton set out to the West of England fat stock and poultry exhibition in his hometown of Plymouth, because this man's fascination in life was breeding. The idea that a species could be continually improved by the intervention of human expertise regarding the mating process. Much like Match.com today.
I can't breed. Not my problem, chuds. Yo, Kenny. I can't breed. Not my problem, chud. I can't relate, chud. I can breed anytime I want. Let's get it.
Like most very, very smart people, Galton believed that there was only a small minority of the population capable of governance and all the rest of that untidy business, once saying, quote, the stupidity and wrong-headedness of many men and women being so great as to be scarcely credible. Galton went to the West of England fat stock and poultry exhibition in order to see the satisfying results of technocracy upon livestock, which were in fact very impressive. But while he was there, he stumbled onto something. It turned out that the West of England fat stock and poultry exhibition was having a raffle. For sixpence, which is about $50 today, you could buy a ticket in this raffle, and the first prize was an ox, or to be more precise, a slaughtered and dressed ox. But there it stood, right there. There stood the ox. The person who came closest to guessing the weight of the ox would win many, 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 many take-home boxes of premium English ox.
That's such a Chad gift, dude. I think I had ox. Yeah, my family had a friend who went hunting for ox, and he gave us ox. We got like ox burgers and ox sausage, and dude, that's like the chattiest prize ever. I would love to have a freezer full of ox right now.
Now, being surrounded by the rabble, Galton decided to, 1, amuse himself, and 2, prove his theory that regular people were little more than blithering idiots. So once the results were in, he took a look at the 787 guesses and discovered what he expected to discover, that most of the guesses were way off, and some of them were just absurdly off. Presumably the experts, like ox breeders or butchers, had gotten pretty much close to the correct weight. But some of these guesses were so far out of the park that Galton surely must have thought that it was a wonder that these people could even dress themselves. But then, almost on a whim, the statistician in him decided to average the results. He took all of the guesses, including the wildest ones, added up the total ox poundage, divided it by the 787 entries, and came up with an average guess of the weight of that slaughtered and dressed ox.
You see, he's telling us a story now about like guessing the weight of an ox. Like, I mean, I guess it's not really shilling necessarily, but you notice how we're like not really learning about transhumanism anymore? Or like the Great Reset? Hurry up and get to the point.
It turned out that the slaughtered and dressed weight of that English ox was 1,198 pounds. The average guess of the Great Unwashed came to 1,197 pounds, far closer to the actual weight of the ox than the winning individual entry. In other words, while none of the people in the crowd got the number correctly, the collective wisdom of the crowd absolutely nailed it. Galton later admitted that, quote, the result seems more credible to the trustworthiness of a democratic judgment than might have been.
Oh, wow. So it's some sort of a, what does it amount to? Democracy. Wow. So we're learning about a study. Francis Galton did a study where we learned that the wisdom of the crowd used their democratic collective knowledge to guess the weight of an ox. Wow. Science rules! Bill, Nye, the science guy. Bill. Did you guys know that democracy is actually the best because they guess the weight of an ox? Cringe! This guy's wasting my time, dude. Q boomer!
Expected, unquote. You think? Okay, maybe that was a one-off. But in May of 1968, the American nuclear submarine USS Scorpion was shadowing a Soviet submarine off of the Azores Islands. On the 21st of...
So we're doing studies to, like, back up democracy now? That's what this is now? So that's what this is now. This guy is like teaching us about democracy through science. What the fuck is this, dude? I told you this guy was a Q boomer, dude. I told you. It's like, wait for it. He's gonna shill somehow. This guy is gonna shill somehow. And that's it. Now this is somehow like a pop culture democracy science lesson. Like, what the fuck happened to this video, dude?
May, USS Scorpion came up to periscope depth and made a radio transmission announcing that it was heading back on schedule to its home port in Norfolk, Virginia. But USS Scorpion never came home. The only other nuclear submarine lost by the U.S. Navy was USS Thresher back in 1963, but Thresher was conducting sea trials at the time and was literally directly underneath USS Skylark when she went down, so finding Thresher was not a problem. But the search area for the Scorpion could only be narrowed down to pretty much the widest part of the Atlantic Ocean. Where is USS Scorpion? It's resting out there on the bottom of the Atlantic someplace.
You see, guys, this is, let's have a little talk. All right, this guy's made me realize it's time to have a little chat with my buddies. If you are not sharp in logic, if like I said earlier, you want to learn about the elite, because this is like really like popcorn stuff. This is like really popcorn, stay up all night and drink soda. Wow, let's eat popcorn and drink soda and stay up all night and learn about the Illuminati and learn about the technocrats and learn about transhumanism. If you're not an intellectual, if you don't have a firm grasp on philosophy and philosophy of history, these kind of people are going to shill you somehow. And right now, he's giving you like pop soy history on the science of why democracy is good. And this is where my skill set lies. And this is what people don't want you to realize about my skill set. And I don't want to like brag about my skill set. I got strong logic. I took symbolic logic and reasoning and aced it at UNLV. It doesn't mean that much, but I have reason to believe that I have strong logic abilities. And what that means is if you have a video about transhumanism or technocracy like this guy, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to pay attention. And if you're going to like take us for a ride, if you're going to do a bait and switch, if you're going to take us for a ride, if you're going to waste our time, I will catch it. I will see if it's not the real deal. This guy's not the real deal so far. This guy, and this is like the first episode, part 1. So this guy's like multi-part series. He's going to take you for a ride. He's just, you're not going to get it. And I'm having trouble even like articulating the point I'm trying to make. You guys, there's no shortcut. That's the point. And when you're understanding like honeypots, but how is Jay Dyer a shill? Like, we're watching Jay Dyer and learning from him, and you say he's a honeypot. How does that make sense? The system is trying to, like Rick said earlier, they're trying to find people who slip through the cracks because they have total and complete dominance. Everybody's falling for it, guys. Not many people slip through the cracks. This is a very this is a very arrogant system that we're dealing with. And they pride themselves on their ability to mislead the masses. You are a problem. You trying to figure out the truth are a problem. And people like this guy, more so than Jay Dyer. Jay Dyer's good information for the most part. This guy is a grifter. And this guy is hoping that you only know a very little bit. He wants you to be like, oh, well, you know, I heard a couple of Alex Jones episodes. I know something kind of about like, you know, Jay-Z makes the pyramid symbol. He's in the Illuminati. I know that Jay-Z's in the Illuminati and that GMOs are bad. If you have a very thin grasp of what's going on, you're never going to get it because guys like this, you'll watch this guy and you'll hang off of everything he says. And I can only help you so much, my friends. You have to decide, how badly do you want to know the truth? How important is it to you? We're going to go ahead and ditch that guy. He was a grifter. Okay. How should Christians approach the end times? 3 minutes and 45 seconds. This is the longest one we did in a while. I got to go to the bathroom. Let's get you some funny ducks. We haven't done the funny animals in a while. Funny duck. Let's go. Funny ducks. This guy's a nothing burger. That's right. All right.
Jesus. Hi, baby. Hi, my baby. What you doing?
Що, мам'я? Oh my God.
Nice try, grifter ducks. Trying to nothing burger grift it. Let me guess, this is based shaman. Yep, I still get all these based shaman updates. The Raxcast. Okay, very short little segment here. How should Christians approach the end times? Bible study fellowship. Let's go. Let's skitty gitty gitty.
There are three kinds of people in the world.
those that are fascinated by and focused on end times teaching, those who are completely ignorant of them, and those who know that the Bible speaks about such matters but are not interested because they know too many people who
Let's go
in that first category. Because certainly the end times has always been a topic of interest and discussion. It's not just a modern phenomenon. If you go back through the history of Christianity, people have always been interested in these texts. Unfortunately, though, there are many people whose Christian faith is focused almost exclusively on such matters. And I say unfortunately because often such people have a sincere interest in the things of God, but they have a kind of truncated and misdirected understanding. Because you see, it's undeniable that the New Testament is thoroughly future-focused. As one scholar has put it, to be a Christian is very much to be one whose life is shaped by the hope of God's future. So it's totally right for us to think about and hope in God's coming kingdom. We should do that. That's what it means to be a Christian. After all, this is at the core of the prayer that Jesus has taught us to pray. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as is in heaven. Yet, I'd like to suggest to you that there's a way of studying and thinking about the end times that's actually kind of more akin to conspiracy theories or science fiction thrillers than to the biblical witness. In the scriptures, we're given many images and parables about the future, but their exact meaning is unclear. We're not able to, nor are we meant to be able to nail down all the specifics of times and places and events concerning the end times. Remember, even Jesus doesn't know the day of his own return. Instead, the application of eschatological teaching in the Bible is twofold. First, these teachings are meant not so much to fill our minds with theories, but to change our daily living. That is, the point of Jesus' vision of the coming kingdom is to exhort us to live now in light of the coming future, not just to be dreaming about the future, but to live now differently. Because of the centrality of the coming kingdom, we as followers of Christ need to align our lives according to the principles and truths of God's reign. And second, these teachings give us great and sure hope. The fallenness of this world, from injustices to illnesses to natural disasters, will one day be set aright. God is restoring all of his creation, us included, and this hope is what enables us to endure with faith. So whatever trial or difficulty you face this week, you know from Jesus' teachings that you can set your heart and your hopes on the reality of God's beautiful and gracious coming kingdom.
Let's get it. All right, my friends. Longer sesh today. I am thinking about making a new intro. I know people get pumped up for the intro here. It's just kind of like the way the intro is very like spazzy. It's very spazzy. It's over dramatic. We're going to get to the bottom of it. Join Sketty Squad. I want to have a more what's the word? It's got to have style, man. I am starting to visualize this podcast like we're a bunch of distinguished, intellectual, older men wearing suits, maybe drinking a little scotch, and we all meet somewhere to discuss news, like real, like refined boomer stuff. Like we're a bunch of thinking men, and we got our suits and we got our scotch, and we're all sitting at the table puffing on cigars, watching like an old television set. A bunch of men discussing the news. We're a bunch of refined, intellectual men discussing the news. I want to have a intro that's more like in that vein. Like something just really not spurgy, not like explosions and really intense music. Like, welcome to the Reformed Stoic News Hour, where we discuss current events, philosophy. Yeah, I want it to be very Mad Men. I want to have like a Mad Men, refined, intellectual kind of guys, powerful men wearing suits, intellectuals. I want it to have like a serious, kind of a boring vibe, you know? Like if you're looking for goy slop, if you're the kind of person who never watches anything intellectual, this is when you turn the TV off. This is when the thinking men puff their cigars, sip on their scotch, and discuss the world, you know? And I think you guys make the difference here. Somebody was talking shit earlier saying I get more views when I don't do the podcast. We're down to 2 podcasts a week, guys. I want it to encourage intellectual stimulation. I want big thinkers in the chat asking questions, recommending topics. The point is for us to discuss. Any news clips that we watch are meant to encourage discussion and learning, of course. So I'll definitely get thinking about a new intro, something way more laid back, something more cool. And then I also wanted to put out a video just kind of like advertising the podcast just to make sure people know it's Mondays and Fridays. And that's pretty much it for today, guys. A little bit longer today. Transhumanism, technocracy. The technocracy are the ones who are pushing transhumanism. Let's go. God bless you, my friends. I got to beat Destiny of an Emperor tonight. One hell of a boss battle that I'm going to have to face. So that's what I got going. Some reading. Probably cooking up the same old around here. Pasta and whatnot. I'm ready to get off to my evening life. God bless you, friends. Thanks for being here. And the next podcast is Friday.